Hi, welcome to Nancy Jean's Garden again. And we have a friend. I feel like Mr. Rogers. I have a friend in my garden. This is Dorothy Morgan, also known as nhastrolger. The NNAH stand for New Hampshire, which you'll understand when she talks. It's like me, I've been in the South too long. But I would like to let you know a little bit about how I came to know Dorothy. I when I first went off on my adventure of building grids and was attracted to them, I built a grid for my family. I always try things out on myself. And I put the grid together in a day in March, and it was for prosperity, abundance, and great surprises. And so the next morning, I opened up my email, and there was an email from Dorothy, and it said that every month she goes through, and for people who have been new correspondents with her, she takes their emails and pulls one and does a reading. And I do believe you still do that, don't you, Dorothy?
I should. I do, but I haven't done it in a couple of months, so I owe a few people.
Okay, well, anyway, that's how I met Dorothy. Apparently, the fates were aligned for me that day. And so in it said she was going to be kind enough to give me a reading. So I wrote her back and kind of explained where I was with all this. And we arranged, I went on her schedule and she scheduled me a progress chart reading. And I think it took about 2 or 3 weeks because Dorothy's a busy lady. And when I met with her on the phone, because we didn't have Zoom yet, I met with her on the phone. I said, when did you pull that number? When you pull a name? And she said, oh, I have this time in my office. This is when I do it. And it was about a couple hours after I'd set my grid up. And I went, I guess this baby's working over here, because I considered it a definite gift, surprise, and abundance to have a reading from Dorothy. So she's part of stories she's on my website, the story about her and stuff. So people have asked me about her. And she contacted me and said, I understand you mentioned me on your show, on your channel. And so we got together and decided to have her come over here and visit us. I'll let her explain what she's going to talk about, but as we're going to talk about phases of the moon, I really like in astrology working with the moon because it goes around every 30 days. So if you miss it 1 month, you can catch it next. And she's going to kind of tell you a little bit about how to work with the phases of the moon. And it's a wonderful energy, and it's a little more difficult to touch than my crystals, but it's definitely every bit as effective. So
it is.
Dorothy.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm so glad to be here. So, yeah, working with the lunar phases is important. When Nancy and I were talking recently, we were talking about the most recent full moon that we had, and everybody recognizes there's the full moon because there's always a big deal about it. Or even if news isn't making, excuse me, a big deal about it, we can see it in the night sky, and it's just wondrous. We're always looking up at the moon. But the moon, in her many disguises, she has 8 phases that I like to work with. And I even look at that when it comes to looking at your natal chart, right? But we don't have to talk about that, but what we can use in the natal chart, we can use every single month. And you don't have to, you can follow moon cycles, and there's a lot of books out there on how to actually calendar so you can see what phase we're in. So when we use these full moons, the full moon, again, it's just like this beautiful energy, and we're looking up at the sky, and it is a reflection of what's going on in the world today. That's what astrology represents. A lot of people think, and I even misspeak sometimes, that it's making this happen. And the planets and the moon, they're a reflection of what's going on down here. So they don't make anything happen. It's a suggestion. And that's why we get to interpret it. But back to the lunar phases. I mean, it starts with every new moon, and most people don't even know when that is. You need to have a calendar and a book that actually tells you when the sun and the moon are at the same zodiac degree, because they're not going to be, you can't see it. So if you're staring at the sun, all you're seeing is a big bright ball, our star, right? So the moon will be right with it, and you won't be able to see it. So it takes a couple of days after a new moon before we start to see it in the western sky. The beautiful little fingernail sliver of a crescent is just gorgeous So if you have a clear view west just after new moon, go and sync with it. This is one of the ways that we can really get in alignment if we want to do this. Like, it's not like the crystals, like, again, you can't touch it. This is one of my favorites. It's Popholite. I love this one.
Mhm.
You can't touch the beautiful moon, but you can see her. So if you want to engage with that, that is a way to engage with the moon, like you can with your crystals or other things that you can hold in your hand. So you can visualize it. So get out there. Here in New England, it's a wee bit cold right now. It's below the zero with the wind chill. So I wasn't out there last night, but I could see it through the window. But the point is like, that is a way that you can connect. So, and it's very important. And if you miss it, like Nancy said, we can just do it again next month. But I want you, if you really would like to use this type of energy and magic, if you will, do get a calendar to find when the new moon is, because at new moon phase, and it lasts, the moon moves at different speeds depending on where it is in it's not a perfect circle around us. It's called that. It's just that elliptic, right? It goes at an odd shape. And sometimes it's closer and faster, and sometimes it's further away and slower. But approximately 2.5 days is each lunar phase. And there's 8 of them. So find that calendar, find when that new moon is. And I'll tell you too, if you come to my YouTube channel, I usually talk about that. And I get really specific. I have a membership platform that I get super specific, and I do live interactions with people there. But on the YouTube, you can check that out. I always tell you when it is, what time. And you want to start that day or that evening, or within the 2 days of the new moon, you want to start and set some intentions. But I think it's important, as I tell in the videos, it's important to focus on the zodiac sign that new moon is in as well, because each zodiac sign has its own qualities and its own focus. So when we have a new moon, the next new moon will be in February. You know, I don't have the date in my head, but it's at the very, it's really at the very end of Aquarius. And let me look, because I really want to know now. I forgot to look. I always have this stuff. You guys know me. If you follow me, you know I'm kind of goofy like this. Sometimes I forget to look. There is the new moon. That's right. It's on February 11th. It's at 23 degrees of Aquarius. So within a few hours, you're going to want to, yeah, that next one, it's at 2:06 in the afternoon, Eastern time zone. So when we have this new moon, you want to set intentions, because we go through a quick monthly cycle, but we set intentions as to what we want in regards to like Aquarian type things. And for that right now, that's like the electronics, internet stuff, friends, groups, associations. I'll go into all of that when we get a little bit deeper, but set those goals. And then, excuse me a second. And then that's when we're planting a seed. And if anybody does any gardening whatsoever, even if you don't, you can understand this concept. You're going to plant a seed, you're going to put it in, you're going to plant a few of them. Like if you plant a row of lettuce, this is always a great one for me. I used to plant a lot of lettuce when I had land. And after a while, you know, you just have to put that in and you have to nurture it. You can't see anything. Nothing will bloom. It doesn't bloom immediately. It takes a certain amount of time. But you're not going to go back and dig it up and say, why aren't you growing? Because then you're going to ruin it. So what we need to do, right? And then it takes a few weeks or a few days, and in some instances, a while. It takes a little while for it to start to sprout. But when everything sprouts, it all looks the same. So we're not even sure. So that's the next phase, right? So we're starting to see some of the things that we've planted, or as I would like to call it, goal setting, intention setting. That's what we do at the new moon. And then it takes a little while. Now, some things cannot grow in a month from completely start to finish. And it's just 2 weeks to the full moon. So you can see if you have some quick, easy things that you know you can set intentions for, that 1 month lunar cycle, easy enough. But lunar phase families is another whole concept, which is not brand new, but new enough. And I know the person who created that, who recognized that concept. She wrote a book about it. I love it. What happens with a new moon is it begins a 3-year cycle. Now, for long-term goals, this is beautiful. So make sure you find time every month at that new moon phase to set intentions.
Mhm.
The long range of the lunar phase family is 9 months and 9 months and 9 months and 9 months. So here we are, for example, we have right now, we just had a full moon, all right, in the sign of Leo, and that was on January 28th. So I wanted to see what was the new moon that's related to that. So we go back 18 months. So there was a new moon, July 31st, 2019, that was very near the same number that we have the full moon that we just had on January 28th. So where does 9 months come in? That new moon goes to the first quarter. So now we're just looking at 4 quarters, not the 8 phases that we can look at that, but that's not the point. It's the 4 phases. So I'm talking about 2 separate things here. We're in the lunar phase family now. So new moon, 9 months later, there's the first quarter. That means that the sun and the moon are at a 90-degree angle to each other. And this is when, same number as the new moon was, this is when we get to really see those projects or see what is going on. I just had major confirmation of this recently, just in a family thing, and it was phenomenal. 9 months after that, which is 18 months from the new moon, we have the full moon, right? And so there we are, the full moon. And that is when we get to see the completion. It's like when you're growing your garden, you now have all that you've been growing, everything that has been healthy and has been able to stay and grow really well. It's time to start to decide what you're going to do, how you're going to harvest. You're going to can it, you're going to eat it right then. What are you going to do with it? And that's that full moon phase, which was 18 months away from the new moon. So the new moon is very important to initiate things. And again, if you miss it, you miss it, and that's fine, because there's a new moon every single month. So there's tons of these timelines going on at the same time. And then 9 months after that, we are at the third quarter, the second quarter, if you will, in this format. And so that's when you are completing what you began before, 3 cycles before that. Now you're completing the process, you're tying up loose ends. It takes another 9 months. And then we come back to another new moon, which is 3 years later. And that is just in the same vicinity as where it was when we started. So I know that might be complicated. Hope you're not glazing over too fast, but the point is,
Listen, they put up with me in different kinds of courts.
the point that it comes down to is we have the very quick and simple new moon each month, and goes through that whole process. And we look at that. And to me, there's 8 cycles, right?
Right.
And then this longer term cycle, this longer timeline, which is which is basically approximately 3 years. So it's new moon to first quarter, 9 months, 9 months later to the full moon, 9 months later to the fourth quarter, 9 months later back to the new moon again.
Mm-hmm.
So timelines all over the place. It's like a spider's web. It's like this timeline, boom, this timeline, boom. So if you have a bad day on the new moon, don't worry about it. Shift right out of that, because sometimes things can even grow out of what isn't good.
Yeah,
We know
sometimes
that's
the thing
true.
you thought was the worst thing that
Yeah.
ever happened to you ends up taking you to the best place you could have got to.
Indeed it does.
Yeah, I was
Wiser
thinking,
words were never spoken, man. That is amazing, because it's sometimes, we know when we're in the worst place ever, we're not even sure how we're ever going to get out of it. And then years later,
that's how we learn. I
Mhm.
learned a long time ago that it's never hideous, horrible mistakes those are just another lesson to learn from. And if you put it in the frame of a lesson, you're going to deal with it a lot more productively than otherwise.
Indeed. Yeah, I agree. Can I clarify any of that for you?
Yeah. When you say do intentions, I hear different people say, well, I just thought it and it didn't happen, And I always tell people when they're working with one of my crystal grids and they're going to fire it up, which is something like your intentions list. I always tell them, write your intentions down and write a whole bunch of them. And then sort of like you planted all those lettuce seeds and you got too much lettuce and you have to weed them out.
And you have to weed them out. Exactly.
You have to weed out and pick out the intention that really is the one that strikes to your heart. Working with the theory that we have a little brain in our heart, and when that one feels it, then that's better than the brain up here, because this one,
that's a great idea.
This befuddles everything. So when I feel it in my heart, and trust me, guys, I worked years at opening my heart back up so I could feel things with my heart. When I feel it with my heart, then that's an intention to put there. Do you tell people to write intentions lists? And then I hear all this stuff about write your intentions and then burn them on this day and all that stuff.
Don't burn
I don't do that much craziness.
No, you don't want to burn them. That is, to me, that doesn't work, that because you've now just destructed it. But there is nothing wrong with having a journal that you write your intentions in, and some people, you have to decide what's best for you.
Right.
Some people I know have been teaching the new moon stuff for decades. Some people will take those new moon intentions and they want to keep it private, and never look at it again. And I know others that just have that journal, and as they're using that journal, I mean, they'll even open that book up and have it on their altar with whatever is meaningful to them. So if you're, trying to grow something, I mean, that's, you want, with the new moon, you want to set intentions which have an opportunity for you to grow.
Right.
And you want to avoid words like I want, because you're always wanting. You're always wanting. The universe hears you. And so we do need to be a little careful with our words, but still it's if we're not going to split hairs, Well,
the one thing I do know is somehow the universe is like a small child. Children don't understand no or not or don't. They don't, when you say that to them, all they hear is you don't get to have ice cream. All they hear is I have ice cream. They blank that out. I don't know how the universe got this childish mindset, but it does. So you can't write an intention of I don't ever want to have a boyfriend like the last one I had, because all you're going to pull is the universe is going to read that I want to have the last boyfriend I had, and you're going to draw, if you as the local loser, you're going to find all the rest of them. So, don't use negative words. And the other thing I tell people is if you can't think of it another way, write out a scenario. If you want to change jobs, write out a description of as if you're in that job right now. And how you see yourself. I don't care if it's down to the color of the desk chair, whatever you want, put it in there and see how much of it happens. And
that's important.
I keep a journal, but I tell people to don't worry about it. Once you write it out, you've let it go, let the universe deal with it, roll it up, put it in the back of your underwear drawer. And the next time you clean your underwear drawer, look at it and see what's happened.
Yeah. So everybody has their own ways of working these things. So, I have students, clients, however, that have been keeping the new moon books for ages, and they'll go and they'll look back and they're like, oh, look at that. That did happen. And, because if it's what you want, eventually it can, as long as you keep those intentions nice and clean. And again, like coming up when we do the new moon in Aquarius, I easily, because Aquarius, let me think, groups. I easily find new groups online to engage with. So groups and new online, all of that are Aquarius qualities. So I easily find is a wonderful way to use it. you know, it's like a flow. I'm finding it. It's like, well, I hope I can find a way to, you know, connect with somebody online. There'll be a lot of online dating. I mean, I'm sure there is a lot of that now anyways, but the Aquarius is really engaging in electronics and freedom and independence. And there's just a ton of things that, that we can really work with when it comes to the new
That's
moon
the
stuff.
world my son lives in. He's a computer security encryption specialist.
Yeah.
And I mean, he really is in that world. When he was a little boy,
Yes.
when he was a little boy, I said, honey, what do you want to do when you grow up? He said, I want to live in a computer.
Oh
And
my God.
really where he lives. But
There's a lot of there's a lot with artificial intelligence going on right now too. I
yeah,
have a
especially when you're in your 20s.
Mhm.
You know, they understand all that stuff. And he's very helpful to me in doing this show particularly, but in
Nice.
other ways. But I was talking with him about it, and he said, well, it's kind of what you talked to me about a few months ago, Mom. A lot of social media is cleaning up its act.
Yep.
And they're getting stronger about helping society draw lines where they were afraid if they took their crayons out and created lines, it was going to be wrong.
Yeah.
But he said, and he's grateful to see it because it makes it easier for him in intercompany communications to control things. But he said, why do you think that's happening? Because he always figures I know why things are happening. And I just looked at him and I said, because people are creating a greater social identity and they're beginning to understand that this is just like words if you were dealing with people personally. Yeah. And I think that's very Aquarian for us to understand.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
beyond the point we're at right now.
Right. And Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, it popped in there back in April of 2020. And Saturn is about boundaries and rules and regulations and such. And everybody got shut down at that point in time. And he did back out, but he's later in the summer, but he's back in there now. And so is Jupiter. A lot of all of this with this new moon on the 11th, we have like 6 planets in the sign of Aquarius, which is incredibly that we haven't had that in a while, but it's rare. So what that means is it's still, we're still remaining detached. Right. And it doesn't mean we can't connect through our heart centers, because we certainly can, but we're still remaining detached. So we knew that just this winter was still going to be one of separation and distance, and still a lot more with what we're doing online. And of course, that's going to really change, even with Jupiter in there. That's changing higher education, even lower education, but especially colleges that are not able to keep above water because they don't have students in person anymore to cover even basic expenses for colleges. And I know that's off track a little bit with the moon, but these are Aquarian things, and these are situations that we're here to engage in. And this new social order, if you will, is coming down the pike. But I like to, if you know me, and you do, I like to bring things back to what's going on for me. I'm not a big politician. I'm not into the politics at all. I mean, I pay attention for my own personal information, but it's not public like you. And because I don't want to be interested in that, because I'm interested in working individually with people who need, what do you need? How can we use, and that's what I try to do as best I can, how can we use what's going on out there to benefit me? And that's important, or to you, to benefit the person I'm speaking with. What can we do? So again, if you want to use this new moon coming up, but don't do it before the new moon. It has to be the new moon or after. Because that's the moon is then, even though she's still dark, she'll be in a waxing phase as soon as it's new. So never do it before. Don't do any intentions before the new moon. That's my favorite lunar phase. The one right before the full moon, before the new moon, is called the balsamic lunar phase, just like the vinegar. But what that 2-day period before the new moon represents is about going within, distilling everything that you've learned over the last month cycle, or whatever cycle we're looking at, that lunar phase, right? And we're looking at that, and it's a period of like really defining what remains. That's what distilling means. It's like taking volumes of stuff. It's like like alcohol, taking volumes of things and distilling it down to just a little bit. And that's the gold. That's the most important stuff. And if we don't give ourselves that opportunity every single month, then we get an overload. So if you can honor even that piece as well, because the new moon setting intentions, the full moon is when we get ready to release things, and we start to release things every month. But when we get right before that new moon balsamic lunar phase, that's one of the 8 ones. I'm not talking about all of them today, but that's when we can really pull it in. So if you're paying attention at all and you see when that new moon is on your calendar, just know for a couple days before that, if you feel like just, sort of curling up on your couch and reading a book and not engaging with people, perfect. Do it. That's what we need to do. We need to honor these phases and these cycles. And so it's a wonderful way. And it's not like, oh my gosh, I have another thing to do. How can I do any more? Because I'm telling you, if you feel like this is about honoring the feminine cycle, no matter what your gender is, it's honoring that feminine cycle, which happens every single month. So that's self-care. Taking care
And
of
we have energy flow through us differently in our physical bodies. It's hormones, and energetically, it's the other things we become aware of. One of the things I think, one of the purposes I think of 2020, and with all of its hideousness and all of its weird shit, is that it made people go home, and it took away all of their toys, so they had nothing left to play with but their own energy and their own heart. And they had to finally focus on, why am I here?
Yeah, what's important
to run
me.
off to this meeting, join that group, get in the middle of this march, do any of that stuff. Everybody kind of had, and for better or for worse, people are balsamicking, to make up a new word. Actually, that's what balsamic vinegar means. It's the most highly refined. If you've ever seen really the stuff that's like $45 a bottle, it barely glops out. It's the essence of vinegar.
It's so delicious. Oh my gosh.
Wonderful. Yeah.
My body loves that kind of, my
Tomato
mouth's watering just thinking about it.
Tomato, mozzarella, and some really great balsamic vinegar. You're done. I mean, that's it. Anyway, we're not doing a cooking channel here,
but it's still delish.
Yeah, it's delicious, and you have to learn how to relate all the words you have in your life to all of the places they belong to get an understanding of them. Yeah. But that's, I know you haven't been to astrology. Like I tell everybody, astrologers write everything down. This is why I could never do I studied astrology, and if I sit down and really want to get a headache, I can do it. But and I was back when Dorothy was learning to train, back when we didn't have computers to draw charts. We had an ephemeris, and you had a little 12-part pizza that you had to fill all the parts in. And from this little book, and if you guys have never seen an ephemeris, and many of the younger people who watch this probably never seen a real old-fashioned train or bus schedule, but
this is an ephemeris.
Yeah, that's what you had to work with. You had to look up a date, you had to look up a time, you had to look up a planet, and then it's all in Greenwich Mean Time, and then you had to know how many hours to adjust it to where you were. Yeah, guys, trust me. If
there's a book of tables,
they have all my
longitude.
They have all my admiration, because
trigonometry is involved in the Placidus house system, which I use.
Yeah.
There are many different styles of astrology and ways of looking at astrology. And there's many people in the Hellenistic tradition, they use whole sign houses. So, even if you had like 20 Virgo on your ascendant, they'd put 0 Virgo there, and every house would begin with 0 degrees successively in order. And so there's that. So people have their own ways, but it's cool because we all come down to the same thing when it comes to helping people out.
Well, since we've been talking about the moon, I'm going to find a card. Vamp for me here, Dorothy. I'm going to go find my moon card. Moon is a card in the tarot.
Oh, yes, it is.
It is. And here it is. Right. This is in the deck I use.
Oh, look at that.
And what he's doing is he's gazing at the moon. Now, this one has the people being much more lively. It has the
Mhm.
2 pillars, which means you're walking between 2 points or 2 defined spaces,
Oh, wow.
normally in the moon. But the moon it's just one of the funniest cards when you read it, interpreted it on different decks. In some decks, it's got, it always has, you can see at the bottom here, water, that things are
Oh,
coming out of emotion.
out of emotion,
And
yes.
sometimes a lot of them, the traditional one in Rider-Waite has a lobster. And the idea is when you're going into the face of the moon, the lobster is starting to grow and it's going to shed its skin and be a new lobster. It's the only way lobsters can grow. So you're going to, and that's a painful process. So it makes lobsters very vulnerable. I don't know if you ever read about the life cycle of the lobster, probably.
I was married to a lobster man.
Okay, then when
I live on the
lobsters
seacoast. Yes.
when lobsters shed their skin, they have little caves that they go into and they have to stay in there for 2 days because they literally have
They're called soft. Yeah, they're soft shells.
right.
They actually, we won't talk about the foodness of them, but the soft shells. Yeah. Yeah. You want to,
And
they're very vulnerable then.
but my funniest deck I have a thing called the Hillbilly deck, and the Moonshiner is the magician, and the Empress is the farmer's daughter. I mean, it's just all sorts of things you expect from that. But the moon in that one, I think, is particularly telling. The moon in that one is the outhouse, which not only has the little crescent moon normally on the door, but one of the things the moon means is sometimes the moon is a place where we go hide all the stuff we don't want to deal with. Well, what perfect analogy than the outhouse.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, the moon and the zodiac sign of Cancer, which is each planet has a zodiac sign which it is in charge of, called rulership, and an area of the chart. And the area of the chart that the moon in Cancer rules is the 4th house. That's midnight. It's at the bottom of the chart because the astrology chart is opposite the compass.
Right.
And it's at the bottom of the chart, and that's your most private place. That's your home. It's not the part of your home that you let anybody see except family. It's just your private place, and psychologically, emotionally, and physically. So that's perfectly appropriate. It's exactly. I mean, the tarot and astrology are hand in hand.
Well, that's what
I've tried to study the tarot, and it's just like, nope, not my thing. I mean, I love it and I respect it completely, but it's like not my thing. But I have a whole bunch of documents on the astrology and the tarot, mainly the major arcana, and they go hand in hand.
Well, okay, I'll tell you one of the things that I think will make knowing and following Dorothy. This is a hint from my world. I drew my own chart years ago. I actually took a free university course in astrology, and this is how old I am, in 1968. And I kind of got a fix on where my chart was then, but then I finally drew my own chart. There's still a lot of things in that chart that, just talking with Dorothy the other day, I figured out a lot of other stuff I'd never seen in it. But the best way, if you want to kind of just follow astrology and have a working knowledge of it, get a good chart drawn. Get a good, dependable chart drawn. Now, it helps if you know when you were born.
Yeah, you have to know when you're born.
Not when you're born, but your birth time. I mean, the actual time to do Placidus that she does. But, if you can just get, date and time and that stuff together, get either, there's some, I really hard pressed to draw people to we draw the chart for you group of people, because I know my chart and I've actually put my birth date and time in and gotten the wrong information back.
Yes, just email me.
Yes.
Email me and just say you saw me on this show, and you'd like a copy of your chart. Can I screen share? No, I can't.
I can set you up to screen share.
I will just show them what I will send. Let's just
make you the host, Dorothy.
Okay.
You're the host. It's all in your hands, girl.
Okay, give me a second. I will share this. Let me
pull
up a chart. This is, I'm just got today's chart up right now, but if I was to send you, if you were to send me your birth info, I will send you this. And what it is, it's just this is just an example. It's just a beginner, and it just has all the keys over here. So you know what the symbols are. This is just what I send beginners. And, you know, and just that. So if you would like just a paper copy of this, I'm not giving you a reading or anything, but this is, you will see a copy of your birth chart. So I can do that. And astro.com as well, but it looks different there. They don't always have, but that's where a lot of people go, to astro.com if you don't
Right.
feel like emailing me. And you can just put your information there and you'll be able to see it on your computer screen or your phone or however you like to get stuff like that. So this is just what it looks like. And, you know, if you want an interpretation, that's a whole different story right here.
Yeah.
But you can email me through this and join my newsletter. It's right on the homepage.
And her newsletter is really good. I get her newsletter every month and I look through it because I know some trigger points on my chart, and I go, oh, are they are the planets planning anything fun for me today?
Yeah.
But it's just kind of another interesting aspect to add to your tools. It's like people say, oh, I just want to learn more about crystals because I don't, you know, and crystals are as equally, when you get into it, as complex as astrology, but it's in a lot of ways, it's the patterns. I have a crystalline pattern and you have a geometric pattern to what you do.
Right.
And if you failed geometry, which I didn't fail and it didn't do good, but if you failed geometry, I have a friend who said every time they start talking about trines and squares, and she said it throws me right back into that class. Perhaps this is your karma to learn to get past that block.
Yeah, you know, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. I mean, all you have to do is just look. I mean, look, that's, you know, this is just 90 degrees. These red lines, the one straight across the chart is 180 degrees. There's only a few, you know, I mean, remember that beginner chart? Let me make sure. Whoops. Sorry. I stopped the share by accident. Let's try that again. You know, over here, it shows you what the aspects are. It's nothing to it. There's nothing to it. You don't have to do math. The software now pumps it all out really quick. I mean, obviously I have to do the interpreting, but then there's computer generated reports, which do not take, they are just really, it's not artificial intelligence. It's just it's just like really cold. It doesn't give you the personal information. Because, you know, if they're talking about Venus, well, Venus is about love, relationships, but it's also finances and what I value. So if it's talking about if all it focuses on is a relationship and these computer generated reports, that's not going to be accurate for me.
No,
because I'm not in a relationship at all. It's important what I value, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, the computer generated stuff is fine, but it's not accurate.
It also misses a lot of the subtler things.
It misses that. Yes, it does. Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like you can look up, it's like rose quartz always leads to emotions in the hearts. And that's true. And it is one of the most passive crystals in the world. But you mix rose quartz with the wrong thing, and you're going to have what I call crystal chaos right next to your bed. I've had people call me up and, I have this lovely thing, right? And I'm going, no.
Oh,
you
really?
know, they're firing each other off, and they're saying, why can't I sleep in my bedroom? I bought these lovely crystals to calm me down. And they ended up putting two that go to war with each other. So, you know, this is true. A woman had gone around her house. This is kind of like reading astrology. Well, most of the stuff that they print in the newspapers, that's really based on where the moon is, right? At the time.
No, that's based on the sun sign.
Okay. Well, I know it's based on their sun sign.
It is, but they basically put for each zodiac sign, the real short stuff is just based off of nothing. Nothing. It's
a Chinese fortune cookie.
It's bullshit. But people do sun sign astrology when they really when they write. And basically what that means is they put each zodiac sign on the horizon, called the ascendant. And then where is the sun in the 12 houses? Where is the sun for that zodiac sign? So if you put Aries on the ascendant and you're talking to, okay, Aries today, and we're going to talk about the sun is in the 11th house in Aquarius. Or if we go to Taurus, that means the Aquarius energy is in the 10th house. So I'm going to talk about 10th house qualities, and on we go. That's how sun sign astrology works. That's what began horoscopes and columns back, I believe it was in the 70s. That's when it got really popular back in
Yeah.
the 70s. Think back in the 1930s, so somebody started writing stuff. But this most recent boom was the 70s. And that's
Yeah.
how it started. And that's why, the sun sign astrology took off. And it's a gateway to get you into astrology. It's not super accurate, but it's a gateway.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I like that shiny thing.
Yeah.
What I was going to say about if you know how to blend things, though, and that's what reading a chart well is, understanding how the mix is all put together.
That's the big hurdle. That's the
I
big
had a lot
hurdle when
of
people are
people who
learning. Yeah.
they get all their pretty crystals and throw them in a bowl, and it causes what is actually called crystal chaos. And I mentioned it in one of the first shows I did that, if you have a bowl like that, you kind of need to go sort them out, and you can feel it. And, I could send you a list of what goes with what. But anyway, this one
Oh,
woman.
I would love that. I would love that. My daughter's just getting into all of that stuff, and I'm not sure where to send
I'll
her.
send you some stuff.
That'd be great.
But this one woman wrote me, and she said, I couldn't believe it. She and her husband had traveled, and they brought crystals back every place they went. And they decided, oh, that'll make a lovely bowl in our bedroom. And she never put it together, but they both were noticing their sleep was getting more chaotic. But it being 2020, how can you tell? And so after she saw my show, she carried the bowl out. Her husband said, what are you doing? She said, I'm going to put it in the living room for a while, because I heard this thing about crystal chaos and how it will create chaotic energy around you. It will not let the energy in that room be peaceful. And she said, for the first time, they both slept 8 hours that night.
Nice.
She said, this is, and I said, yeah, I know, crazy, but it's not really crazy. It's certain crystals grow together in the ground, and they grow that way for a reason. I mean, they have the same energy and impetus as they're being created.
Like this.
You've got that's a calming stone. That's a beauty.
And it has some of the, it's apophyllite, and there's stilbite. I think stilbite. It's got like some peach in there too. Peachy stilbite, I think it is. Yeah. I put a different crystal on my desk every couple of weeks. I have a ton of them. Well, not like you.
Well, I try to get them out of my house. No, I've got some really nice big pieces, but this is my merchant stone. It's called a citrine.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's part citrine. The only difference between citrine and amethyst is citrine got hotter when it was in the earth.
I knew that. Yeah. And that's how they actually make fake citrine.
They overheat it.
Oven bake it. They oven bake it. And my other piece, which it took me years to get a piece of moldavite. I wrapped it and put it. Oh,
yeah. Moldavite's wonderful.
I'm finally used to it. When I first put it on, my head was spinning. But I figured I have a meteorite and some moldavite. I've tried wearing both of those together, and that's just
that's going to lead to some crystal chaos.
It's a mistake. Yes, I've done it.
Is your meteorite metal, or is your meteorite a crystal?
It's iron. Yeah,
it's iron, because the other thing that comes in on meteorites,
Tektite,
peridot.
Peridot,
the little olivine, the little.
I have them. Yeah,
I've seen a meteorite that was sliced, and you could see through it. You could see the little green lights.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
That's one of the oldest. That's one of the oldest mineral forms that we use. That we
do have some peridot, but only in tiny pieces.
It's not a huge. It's hard to find big pieces.
Yeah. Wow.
The current part of the world that is creating lots of peridot is Hawaii. Its volcanoes create a lot of peridot.
Oh, how cool is that?
I know. Anyway, so see, guys, you get into all this stuff, but I like to let Dorothy go back out and freeze in New Hampshire. I'm freezing in Texas today.
Right now it is.
Not to make you too angry, Dorothy, but it's going to be 70 degrees here tomorrow.
Jesus Christ. Really?
It
is currently 13 degrees, but it feels like -4 because of the wind chill.
Yeah.
Not kidding. 13.
No, guys, I grew up in Illinois, and we didn't have wind chills when I was a kid. We just had thermometers. My mom said, you're going to school. I don't care. School was a block and a half away. It was 25 below zero. And she just, out the door, kids, school's that way. She grew up in Canada, so she thought Illinois was warm. Oh,
I got my gear. I'm going out as soon as we're done because I don't have any. I have some errands to run and I have some things to put in the mail.
Well, stay nice and warm so all those
I
people
will.
can go see you, and I hope they will go to you. I will have below contacts to her website, contacts to her YouTube channel, and how to reach Dorothy. And I just cannot tell you, she's part of the myth and the legend of how I learned compasses really work. So she must be a very powerful lady because out of all the universe, she's the astrologer that they sent to me.
Hey,
Hey,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
anyway, and I will be I'll be going on. I will, by the time you see this, I will have finished my 1 through 9 and then the other numbers on the end. And I'll be back into more tarot and crystal-y things. But like I said, all these things are all related, and you need to just find whatever vibration works the best for you and then work with it.
Yep. And even if
thank
you don't feel like doing major work with the new moon, at least find out when the new moon is and just, center and just, I have a good month in front of me. Just, anything
I've had
simple.
new moon parties, guys, when we used to be able to have remember those things where
Parties.
people got in the same room without masks on?
I know. Oh my gosh. All right, Nancy. Thank you
Okay,
so
bye-bye,
much.
Dorothy. Take
Take good
care.
care.
Bye, everybody else.